Alone at my promotion dinner, my mother wrote, "You are not a priority." Hours later, my sister was celebrating her new luxury apartment. I paid the bill, canceled the tuition payments, and left a note, let her pay for it. When I woke up, 97 missed calls. "You're not exactly a priority right now," my mother wrote while I was sitting alone at my promotion dinner. 3 hours later, my sister posted family night for the real success story. It was my sister, who had just bought a luxury apartment. I paid the $2,500 bill, went home and canceled the tuition payments I had been covering for 5 years. Then I left a note on her door, let her pay for it. By morning, 97 missed calls. My name is Carl, and I suppose, like many, I grew up believing in the sanctity of family. Not the idealized one from movies, but ours, sometimes loud, sometimes chaotic, but supposedly united. I was always the older sister, the responsible one, the trailblazer. From a young age, I understood that my role was to support, to ensure that my parents had fewer worries, that my younger sister, Emma, had opportunities that perhaps they couldn't easily give us. I worked hard. Very hard. The last 12 years of my life I dedicated to climbing the ladder at a communications company here in Madrid. 12 years of sacrificing weekends, of sleepless nights, of putting work above everything else. Not just out of ambition, but because I felt the pressure, both self-imposed and tacitly from my family, to be the one who made it, the one who honored their efforts. When the email arrived confirming my promotion to executive director, I felt immense relief, a joy that bubbled in my chest. It was the culmination of so much effort. My first thought, genuine and immediate, was to share it with them. I wanted to celebrate it with them. Emma was always the center of attention at home. Younger, more sensitive, with artistic dreams that my parents viewed with a mixture of pride and concern. I, with my more structured path in the corporate world, was the level-headed one. When Emma wanted to go to university, my parents couldn't cover all the expenses. Without hesitation, I offered. For 5 years, my salary was divided in 3, my basic expenses in my small one-bedroom apartment, minimal savings for emergencies, and most of it going directly to Emma's account or my parents for tuition, books, extras for her expenses. I remember postponing trips I dreamed of taking, not buying new clothes, saying no to outings with friends. It's for the family, I told myself. Her future is our future. My parents accepted the help as something natural. Sometimes a thank you, sometimes nothing. Emma saw it as a right, I think. Her messages asking for money were casual, as if asking for an unimportant favor. "Hey, can you give me some for the course materials? I need help with this month's rent, can you help me?" Never a real acknowledgement of the effort that implied for me. But I consoled myself thinking that's how family was. That love was demonstrated in actions, even if words were lacking. That they would feel proud of my success, that my sacrifices had a greater purpose. The promotion was the perfect moment for them to see that purpose materialized in me. I reserved a table at one of the most beautiful restaurants in Madrid, the kind you go to for truly special occasions. I chose a Friday night, thinking it would be easier for everyone. I sent them the invitation via WhatsApp, with a photo of the restaurant and a message full of excitement. "I want to celebrate my promotion to executive director with you. I've reserved for Friday at 9. It's my gift to the family, for always supporting me." They responded with applause emojis and vague congratulations. Mom said, "How nice, daughter," and Dad a simple congratulations. Emma sent a party sticker. I felt a pang of disappointment at the lack of enthusiasm, but attributed it to them not being very expressive. They'll be happier in person, I convinced myself. The restaurant asked for a final confirmation and a considerable deposit to secure the large table, which I paid without hesitation. It was $500 for the deposit, plus the estimated cost of the menu I had chosen. I knew the final bill would be around $2,500. A luxury I allowed myself to share my joy. I bought a new dress for the occasion, something elegant but simple. I got ready carefully, feeling good about myself, proud of what I had achieved. On the way to the restaurant, I sent them a message, "I'm on my way, is everything ready?" Mom replied, yes, we're coming." I arrived punctually at 9. The atmosphere was warm, full of conversations and laughter. The maitre d' accompanied me to a round table, perfectly set for 4. I sat down, my heart beating with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. I looked at the door, expecting to see them enter. Minutes turned into half an hour. Then into an hour. Discomfort began to set in. I took out my phone, checked if there was any message. Nothing. I sent another, "Is everything okay? Are you coming?" Mom's response came after a while, "Yes, an unexpected issue, but we're almost there." I tried to relax. I ordered a drink. The waiter approached discreetly, offering bread, refilling my water glass. I felt their looks, perhaps curiosity, perhaps pity. The table for 4, empty except for me. The air in the restaurant, which before smelled of celebration and good food, now felt heavy and lonely. Each laugh from neighboring tables resonated as a reminder of my solitude. My new dress, which before made me feel powerful, now seemed ridiculous. I felt small, foolish. At 11:30, after more than 2 hours of waiting, the kitchen was probably closing or about to. Embarrassment burned my cheeks. I received another message from Mom. Short, cold, mechanical. It said, "You're not exactly a priority right now." My breath was cut short. I read the phrase over and over. I'm not a priority? Right now? At the dinner I organized to celebrate my promotion? What could be more of a priority than the dinner for my promotion to executive director? I felt an icy chill run down my back, despite the heat of the restaurant. My mind refused to process it. It was a joke, right? A misunderstanding. I opened Instagram without thinking, maybe looking for some clue, something that would explain that message. And there it was. Emma's post. A group photo. My entire family, mom, dad, Emma, and her boyfriend, whom I barely knew, were sitting at a table. Where? I recognized the place. Another elegant restaurant, a trendy new one Emma had talked about. The caption said "Family Night for the Real Success Story." The photo showed raised glasses, radiant smiles. Emma was holding keys in her hand. Comments congratulating her were piling up. I read quickly. She had bought a luxury apartment. A luxury apartment. In Madrid. The air left my lungs. My chest tightened as if someone had wrapped barbed wire around my lungs. I felt nauseous. I looked at my empty table. I looked at the photo of their family celebration. A success story. Hers? Buying an apartment? While I was sitting alone, paying for a dinner that nobody honored, after having spent 5 years paying Emma's tuition, helping her with rent, with her expenses, making sure that she could have a chance, study, finish the degree that now, I suppose, allowed her to buy an apartment. And her success was the real success story. Mine, for which I sacrificed and for which I was willing to invite them to an expensive restaurant, was not exactly a priority. In that instant, something inside me broke. It wasn't a clean break, it was as if 1,000 little glass shards were embedded in my soul. Sorrow gave way to an icy, controlled rage, different from anything I had felt before. A rage that didn't scream, that didn't cry, that simply acted. I looked at the photo of the happy family one last time. My fingers trembled so much that I dropped the phone on the table. The metallic sound resonated in the emptiness around me. I raised my hand. I called the waiter with a voice I didn't recognize, strangely firm. "The bill, please." When he brought it, I looked at it. $2,500. The cost of my naivety. I paid. I felt the plastic of the card in my hand, the beep of the machine, the delivery of the receipt. I said nothing. I stood up. I didn't look back. I left the restaurant, the new dress feeling like a ridiculous costume. The journey home was on autopilot. I don't remember how I got there. I entered my small apartment, the same one I had given up improving to be able to help Emma. The rage had settled into a cold and hard determination. There were no tears, just a painful emptiness and a merciless clarity. I turned on the computer. I opened online banking. I navigated to the scheduled transfers section. I found the ones going to Emma and my parents for Emma's expenses. One by one, I canceled them all. 5 years of automatic payments, cut in 5 minutes. Each click of the mouse felt like cutting a thread that had been suffocating me. I felt a weight lift, but also a pang of what? Emptiness? Sadness for what was lost? No. It was the feeling that toxic umbilical cord, financial and emotional, was finally being broken by my own hand. As I stared at the computer screen, an avalanche of memories washed over me. I remembered the day Emma called to tell me she'd been accepted to university. Her voice bubbled with joy through the phone, and I felt genuine happiness for her. That same evening, my mother called separately, her tone somber, explaining how they couldn't possibly afford the full tuition. "She's so excited, Carl. You know how much this means to her," my mother had said, the implication hanging heavy in the air between us. I offered to help before she even had to ask directly. That was the beginning of this financial arrangement that had slowly drained me over the years. I remembered the Christmas 3 years ago when I'd bought everyone modest gifts because my budget was tight after covering Emma's unexpected housing deposit. When I opened my present from them, it was a cheap scarf, while Emma received an expensive tablet for her studies. I told myself it made sense, she needed it more than I did. I remembered how last year, when I was hospitalized with pneumonia for 3 days, my parents visited once, briefly. Emma never came at all, claiming she had important exams to study for. Yet when she had minor food poisoning a month later, I was expected to take time off work to help care for her. But it still wasn't enough. I needed to leave a message, not an explanation. Something simple, direct, that would resonate with the same cruelty I felt. I took a post-it. I wrote one sentence. A single sentence that encapsulated everything. Let her pay for it. I went out again. It was almost 2 a.m. Madrid was sleeping. I drove to my parents' house, the house where I grew up, the one I indirectly helped maintain with my sacrifices for Emma. Everything was dark. Silent. I approached the front door. I slid the note underneath. The soft scraping of paper on wood. I turned around. I got into the car. I felt nothing as I drove away. Just the cold conviction that I had done the right thing. I arrived at my apartment. I threw the dress on a chair. I got into bed. I looked at the ceiling in the darkness. I didn't put the phone on silent. I wanted it to ring. I wanted them to face the consequences of their actions. I closed my eyes, but I didn't sleep. I waited. The storm didn't take long to arrive. It started at 7 in the morning. My phone began to vibrate nonstop. At first, missed calls. 1, 2, 10. When I opened the screen, the red number of notifications was growing exponentially. Calls from Mom, from Dad, from Emma. WhatsApp messages flooding the screen. When it momentarily stopped, I counted. 97 missed calls. 97. In less than 2 hours, the messages were a whirlwind of fury and confusion. Mom, what have you done? Why aren't you answering? This is crazy. Dad, Carl, talk to your mother. Fix this. Emma, you've canceled everything. How am I going to pay the rent? The university? You're horrible. Mom, after everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? You're ungrateful. Do you want to see your sister on the street? Emma, I need the money today. They're going to charge me a late fee. You can't do this to me. Dad, are you crazy? Do you know how much money you owe us for the house? Mom, this is an attack on your family. You have no heart. Emma, I thought you loved me, Carl. Why do you hate me so much? I read them with astonishing calm. They no longer hurt me. They were predictable. Their panic when facing the consequences of their own actions, their quick ability to turn the situation around and blame me. I took a deep breath. I knew I had to talk to them, but not from panic, but from a position of strength. Before calling, I walked to my small balcony and looked out at Madrid waking up. The morning light bathed the buildings in a gentle glow, a stark contrast to the darkness I felt inside. I had always been the practical one, the one who managed emotions, who found solutions. That practicality was what had kept me functioning through years of unequal treatment and emotional neglect. I thought about the countless birthday celebrations where Emma's preferences were catered to while mine were an afterthought. Like my 30th birthday 3 years ago, when I had hinted for weeks that I wanted to go to a particular restaurant, only to have my mother change the reservation last minute because Emma didn't like the menu. Or the Christmas when Emma received a new laptop for her artistic projects while I got a scented candle and a mug. I remembered how when I was hospitalized with severe food poisoning 2 years ago, my mother visited once for 20 minutes before rushing back because Emma was having anxiety about her final project. Meanwhile, I'd taken 3 days off work when Emma had the flu last winter, cooking her meals and cleaning her apartment while she recovered. The pattern was clear, painfully so. But confronting it meant confronting a lifetime of conditioning that told me my role was to give, to support, to sacrifice. That my worth in the family was measured by how useful I could be to them, particularly to Emma. I returned inside and picked up my phone. I decided to call Mom. She was the leader of the drama orchestra. Her voice when answering was a mixture of relief and repressed fury. Finally, can you tell me what the hell is wrong with you, Carl? Why are you doing this to us? To your sister? You know she has no way to pay. My voice was calm, cold. I know, Mom. I've been paying for it for 5 years. So what? You're her sister? That's what family does. We gave you life, we educated you. You have to return the favor. Return the favor? Leave me alone at my promotion dinner because Emma's apartment purchase was the real success story? The calm in my voice seemed to throw her off. Oh, Carl, don't exaggerate. It was a last-minute thing. We couldn't leave Emma alone at a time like that. You could celebrate another day. Don't be selfish. The manipulation was so obvious it was almost ridiculous. Selfish? Me? After 5 years paying her expenses, her tuition, giving up my own things, you were the selfish ones. You stood me up, humiliated me, and then mocked me on social media with the money I gave you. I thought back to all the times I'd made excuses for them, all the times I'd convinced myself that their behavior was normal. There was the birthday dinner 2 years ago when they arrived an hour late because Emma had a crisis over what to wear. The time I got a small bonus at work and took them all out to dinner, only to listen to them talk about Emma's latest art project the entire evening without once asking about my job. The countless weekends I spent helping Emma move apartments, buy furniture, or solve some administrative problem while ignoring my own needs. How many times had I sat in my tiny apartment, eating takeout alone because I couldn't afford better after sending money to support Emma's lifestyle? How many promotions and small victories had I celebrated alone because my family was too busy with Emma's latest drama? The pattern was clear now, painfully so. You know what hurts the most? I continued, my voice still eerily calm. It's not just that you chose her apartment over my promotion dinner. It's that I can't remember a single time in the last 5 years when you chose me. Not once. Mom's tone changed from manipulation to veiled threat. Look, Carl, if you don't reactivate those payments right now, we're going to have serious problems. And don't think we don't remember everything we've done for you. We could ask you to account for many things. There was the real face. It wasn't love, it was a transaction. And I was cutting off the flow. I knew I didn't legally owe them anything for the house or my education, since my parents had resources, but the mention made me think. They always handled family money with secrecy. I remembered a conversation years ago about a small inheritance that my grandmother had specifically left for her grandchildren upon turning 25. I never saw a cent of it. When I turned 25, Mom said it had been used for unexpected family expenses. At that moment, I didn't give it importance. Now. I hung up. The rage returned, But this time it was an energy that drove me forward. This wasn't just about the dinner. It was about years of being used. I had to be prepared. I called my best friend, Sarah. I told her everything. Sarah, who was always my rock, listened patiently. Carl, that's cruel. Really? They've hurt you a lot. And no, you don't owe them anything for your education. You earned it by working, and what they did with Emma is inexcusable. Her validation was like a bomb. It made me realize that I wasn't exaggerating, that my pain and my rage were valid. I mentioned the grandmother's inheritance to her. Sarah had witnessed much of this pattern over the years. She'd seen me cancel plans last minute because Emma needed something. She'd watched me choose cheaper vacation options so I could send money home. She'd listened to me rationalize and excuse my family's behavior countless times. Carl, she said gently, I've wanted to tell you this for years. What they're doing isn't normal. It isn't healthy. You've been their safety net for so long that they've forgotten how to stand on their own. And worse, they've forgotten to appreciate you. Her words resonated deeply. It wasn't just that they had stood me up at the dinner. It was that they had been standing me up, metaphorically speaking, my entire adult life. Sarah suggested talking to my Aunt Elena, my mother's sister. She had always been a bit more independent and got along moderately with my mother, although they kept up appearances. I called Aunt Elena. At first, she was cautious. I told her, with my voice still trembling, about the dinner, the message, the photo. She remained silent. Then, she let out a heavy sigh. Oh, Carl, I knew something like this would happen sooner or later. Your mother has always been like this with Emma. And with you? Well. Listen, about grandmother's inheritance? To us, her children, she gave a part. And to the grandchildren, yes, she left something. Specifically for each one upon turning 25. I remember your part. Your mother said she had administered it for you. I always suspected she used it for something else. Did they buy that new car that year? Remember? The one Emma uses now. I felt a chill. The car. The car that Emma used, which I always thought my parents had bought. Part of my inheritance had financed a car for Emma. The truth of the past. They weren't just using me now, they had been using me from before. The anger solidified inside me. This gave an even darker context to everything. My most recent sacrifices added to a previous history of dispossession. And, I need evidence. Do you have anything from grandmother? Any old paper, something that mentions the grandchildren? Aunt Elena promised to look. Meanwhile, Sarah helped me compile my own evidence, screenshots of messages asking for money, bank statements showing constant transfers to Emma and my parents, the Instagram photo, Mom's message. That afternoon, Sarah came over to my apartment. She brought pastries from my favorite bakery and a bottle of wine. You might need this, she said with a sympathetic smile. We spread everything on my small dining table, bank statements, screenshots, emails. The evidence of 5 years of financial support laid out in black and white was overwhelming. Beyond the regular tuition payments, there were dozens of emergency transfers, $200 here for Emma's art supplies, $350 there for an essential workshop, $500 for a laptop repair that I now suspected might never have happened. Carl, this is exploitation, Sarah said quietly, reviewing the documents. Do you realize you've given them over $35,000 in the past 5 years? I sat back, stunned. I'd never calculated the total amount. When broken down into monthly payments and occasional emergencies, it had somehow seemed manageable. But seeing the sum total was like a physical blow, and that doesn't even include the dinners you've paid for, the gifts, the times you've covered family vacations, Sarah continued, her voice gentle but firm. Carl, this is financial abuse. I'd never thought of it in those terms before. I'd always framed it as family support, as being the responsible one, as doing what was expected of me. But abuse? The word felt both shocking and oddly fitting. I've been enabling them, haven't I? I whispered, the realization settling heavily on my shoulders. Sarah reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You've been manipulated by people who should have protected you, not used you. There's a difference. As we organized the evidence, Sarah reminded me of incidents I'd somehow managed to rationalize away. The time Emma had called me in tears, claiming she couldn't pay her rent and faced eviction, only for me to discover a week later that she'd posted photos of a weekend trip to Barcelona with friends. When I questioned her, she'd shrugged it off, saying a friend had paid for it as a birthday gift. Or the time my parents had asked for help with unexpected medical bills that I later discovered were actually for Emma's cosmetic dental work, something she'd wanted but didn't need, while I had delayed getting my own wisdom teeth removed because I couldn't afford it. I also checked my old emails. I found a couple of messages from Mom from years ago asking for urgent help to pay a supposed debt that I sent, and that now, with Aunt Elena's perspective, I suspected was a lie. The messages from my family continued, becoming more aggressive. We're going to sue you if you don't pay what you owe your sister, Mom wrote. Your father and I are going to talk to our lawyer. It was a bluff, I knew, but it made me see they would escalate. I decided I had to control the next encounter. It wouldn't be a surprise call for them. I sent them a message, stop threatening me. I'm willing to talk, one last time, tomorrow at 6 p.m. near your house. Come alone. If you bring anyone else or try anything, I'll leave. If you don't come, I'll assume you don't want to fix anything and I'll act accordingly. I chose a public place for my safety and to put social pressure on them. The time came. I was sitting in the cafe, with my documents and screenshots in a discreet folder and my phone discreetly recording audio. My parents and Emma appeared. Their faces were tense. They sat across from me, the small table seemed like a battlefield. Mom started immediately, her voice low and controlled, trying to maintain appearances in front of the other customers. Carl, we have to resolve this. You can't do this to your sister? I'm not doing anything to her that she doesn't deserve, Mom. And that you haven't fostered? I replied, my voice calm, almost bored. How dare you? Mom's tone rose slightly. We've given you everything. And you abandon us and leave your sister on the street? Give me everything? Like grandmother's inheritance that you used to buy Emma a car? I dropped the bomb. Their faces went pale. Dad, who rarely intervened, spoke, his voice hoarse. That has nothing to do with it. It was family money. It was used for family needs. It was money for the grandchildren, Dad, for each one. And it was used to buy a car for Emma. Elena confirmed it. Stop lying. Mom caught her breath, with rage in her eyes. That viper, always envious. And you believe her before us, your own mother? You're ungrateful. And don't change the subject. I saw it then, the deflection tactic I'd witnessed countless times but never fully recognized. Every time I confronted them about something unfair, they would shift the blame, change the topic, or make me feel guilty for even bringing it up. It was a perfect system that had kept me in check for years. I thought back to a conversation from just 6 months ago, when I gently suggested that perhaps Emma could start covering some of her own expenses since she had graduated. How can you be so selfish? My mother had responded immediately. Your sister is trying to build her career in a difficult industry. Not everyone gets handed opportunities like you did. The irony of that statement had stung, considering I'd worked overtime for years while putting myself through additional professional certification courses that I paid for myself, all while supporting Emma's education. But somehow, I was the selfish one for suggesting my 27-year-old sister might start paying her own phone bill. I remembered how after that conversation, my father had called me separately to tell me how disappointed he was in my lack of family commitment and how my mother had cried after our talk. The guilt had been overwhelming, and I'd apologized and sent Emma extra money that month as if to prove my loyalty. The manipulation was so clear now, the way they weaponized emotions, twisted narratives, and exploited my desire to be a good daughter and sister. It was a finely tuned system that had worked flawlessly until now. You canceled Emma's payments. She needs that money. She's already asked for a loan and they denied it because she doesn't have stable income. If you don't pay, she'll lose the apartment. Emma started to cry. Theatrical tears or not, I didn't know. Carl, please, I can't lose my apartment. I've worked so hard? It's your fault? You've always been envious of me. Envious, Emma? Of what? Of having to work 12 years to get where I am, while you expected me to pay for everything? Of paying for your education while you celebrated your success story with my parents who stood me up? You want to talk about hard work and envy? I took out the folder. Here, I said, sliding the bank statements across the table. 5 years of direct payments to your account, Emma. Month after month. Here, screenshots asking for money. Here, the Instagram photo of the real success story while I was alone with a €2,500 bill that you didn't show up to pay. I also slid Mom's message, you're not exactly a priority right now. Mom tried to snatch the papers. This is private. You can't do this. It's my money, Mom, my sacrifices, and my humiliation. Now, let's talk about debts. You say I owe you. I say that after the inheritance you kept in the 5 years that I indirectly maintained you and Emma, the emotional and financial debt runs rather in the other direction. I took out my phone. And since you like evidence, here you go. I played the recording of my call with Mom from that morning, just the fragment where she threatened me with asking me to account for things and mentioned everything we've done for you, in a tone of collection. The audio resonated at the table. Mom was speechless, with bulging eyes. Dad looked at the coffee, expressionless. Emma stopped crying, looking at me with a mixture of hatred and fear. This, I said, my firm voice resonating above the recording, is a pattern. You've always seen me as a resource, as the family ATM. My success doesn't matter to you if it doesn't benefit you directly. My priority is zero when there's something better. Well, it's over. There will be no more money. There will be no more sacrifices. You will manage on your own. Emma, you will have to pay for your own apartment and your own life. Like all adults do. And Mom, Dad, the next time you want to celebrate the real success story, make sure it's not financed by the person you stand up. I stood up. The feeling of standing, looking at them sitting, shrunk or furious, was indescribable. A mixture of residual pain, but above all, an immense sense of power and liberation. I had spoken my truth. I had presented my evidence. I had broken the cycle. The note I left said, let her pay for it. And that's exactly what's going to happen. It's over. I turned around. I walked towards the exit of the cafe. I didn't look back. I felt the gazes of people who might have heard fragments of the conversation. I didn't care. I went out into the street, breathed the fresh air of Madrid. The weight of years of expectations and resentment dissipated with each step. As I walked through the bustling streets, I felt strangely light, as if I'd put down an invisible burden I hadn't even realized I was carrying. I wandered without direction for a while, finally finding myself in El Retiro Park. The park had always been my refuge during difficult times. I sat on a bench near the lake, watching families row boats across the water. Children laughed, couples held hands, elderly people fed the birds, ordinary scenes of joy and connection that somehow felt new to me now. I realized I'd spent so many years trying to create and maintain a family connection that was fundamentally broken that I'd forgotten to build healthy relationships elsewhere. Aside from Sarah, I had few close friends. My romantic life had been practically non-existent. Who had time for dating when weekends were spent helping Emma with her latest crisis or visiting my parents to avoid their subtle guilt trips? My phone continued to vibrate in my pocket, but I ignored it. Instead, I called Sarah. "It's done," I said when she answered. "Are you okay?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. "I think I will be," I replied, surprising myself with how true it felt. "Can you meet me for dinner tonight? I think I need to celebrate my freedom." That night, Sarah and I had dinner at a small neighborhood restaurant, nothing fancy, just good food and better company. For the first time in years, I didn't check my phone constantly for messages from my family. I didn't calculate what portion of the bill I could afford after setting aside money for Emma's needs. I simply enjoyed the moment. "To new beginnings," Sarah said, raising her glass. "To boundaries," I responded, clinking my glass against hers. The consequences came quickly and were varied. My family tried to discredit me with some relatives, saying I had gone crazy over money, that I had always been difficult. Some believed them, others didn't. Aunt Elena and her children remained firmly on my side, confirming the story of the inheritance and the family pattern. Some mutual friends distanced themselves, choosing the side of the lifelong family, which hurt me, but also showed me who my true friends were. Aunt Elena called me a week after our confrontation. Her voice was warm but hesitant. "Carl, I found something you should see," she said. "I was going through some old boxes in the attic and found grandmother's will. The original. I think my lawyer had given me a copy for safekeeping." My heart raced. "What does it say?" "It's very specific. She left $15,000 to each grandchild, to be given directly to them when they turned 25. There's a clause that says it cannot be used by the parents for any reason. The money was meant for you to start your adult life, maybe a down payment on an apartment, or to pursue further education." The amount shocked me. $15,000. Money that could have changed my early career, helped me buy a better apartment instead of the cramped rental I'd lived in for years. Money that had instead gone toward Emma's car, a car she'd crashed 6 months after getting it, requiring yet another emergency payment from me for repairs. "I'm sorry, Carl," and Elena continued. "I should have checked on this years ago. I just assumed." "It's not your fault," I assured her, though my mind was reeling. "You couldn't have known." 2 weeks later, I received a formal letter from my parents' lawyer. They were demanding repayment for loans they claimed to have given me over the years, everything from my university textbooks to the dress they'd bought me for my high school graduation. The amounts were inflated, the claims ridiculous, but it showed the depths they were willing to sink to. My own lawyer laughed when I showed him the letter. "This is harassment, not a legal claim," he said. "They're trying to intimidate you. They have no case." He sent a brief response, mentioning the newly discovered will and suggesting that any further discussion should include the misappropriated inheritance. We never heard from their lawyer again. Sarah was unconditionally by my side, celebrating my courage and my new freedom. Emma eventually had to sell the apartment. She couldn't assume the payments without my help and, apparently, without my parents' help either. She had to look for a job and move to a more modest place. It wasn't easy for her, and I received messages full of reproaches and hatred, which I didn't answer. My parents dealt with their own consequences, financial and social. The facade of the perfect family cracked a bit. They tried to contact me several times, not to apologize, but to manipulate me again or complain about their difficulties. I learned not to respond. Or, if necessary, to be brief and clear, my decision is firm. The healing process wasn't linear. There were days of deep sadness, of mourning not for the family I had, but for the family I wished I had. There were moments of doubt, of feeling guilty. But every time I remembered that night at the restaurant, that photo, that message, the guilt disappeared and the conviction returned. I focused on my work, where my promotion brought me new challenges and satisfactions. I cultivated my friendships. I started taking care of myself in ways I hadn't before. I allowed myself selfish expenses, trips, courses, simply enjoying my hard-earned money. I redefined what family meant to me. I discovered that true family is the one that loves you, respects you, celebrates your successes with you, and supports you without conditions or manipulations. I found it in Sarah, in Aunt Elena, in colleagues who became close friends. I learned that setting boundaries is not selfishness, it's self-preservation. That blood doesn't guarantee love or respect. That sometimes, to save yourself, you have to distance yourself from those who hurt you, even if they bear your surname. It was the most painful path I've taken, but also the one that led me to freedom. It's not a fairy tale ending. The emotional scars are there. But I am at peace, free, owner of my own success story. Thank you, from the heart, for having accompanied me this far. I would really like to know what you felt while listening to my story. Did it resonate with you in any way? Have you ever experienced a similar situation with your family? Share your thoughts and emotions in the comments. I read them all.